Here's Grandpa Brian on his retirement week celebration in Peoria, Illinois. All right, go ahead, Grandpa.
Family, and this is my special recipe, so I've got it covered. We will not let the secret out.
Oh, what is it? Oh, I'm going to have a helper here. Mr. Reed wants to help.
Reed,
Oh, you want to see it this way?
are you the photographer now?
I want to.
You want Reed to come help you, huh?
Okay, so why don't you ask Grandpa a question? Ask him what it feels like to be retired.
What do you want, Reed? You want broth, barbecue chicken, hamburgers?
Ask Grandpa what he wants.
Don't touch, okay?
Jelly comes with it. You dip it in bottle, stir it in there, and have that to make it hot.
Catherine and Benjamin. And Brian.
I put drops of it on my pizza. Okay. Like 4 drops.
You're teasing them.
I'll be careful.
We want it. Yeah! Oh, what is it? Look at the one, and the green one, and the red one, and the blue one. Why don't you go to Benjamin now, Brian? Look at the green one, and the red one,
He
the
said it's
yellow
like
one. Brian, why don't you give it to me?
be careful with it. Chili, and you put 1 drop in there, the whole thing will be 2 hours complete.
Too big.
A little softer, okay? See that?
Hitting it is so easy, but catching it isn't. Mom, you didn't get Reed's embarrassing moment.
Turn sideways a little bit and swing
Now
like
it
this.
is.
Okay? Not like this. Like this. Hey, Brian, watch out for that move. Watch the backswing there.
Hey, sweetheart.
The puzzle, they're right here. Play one more.
I'll hit it a little soft.
Strike 1. Come on, buddy, hit it. There you go.
You ready?
I'm Deb.
Be gentle.
You help me get this on.
There you go.
Foul ball!
Very nice. I think you're too light. You're a lightweight. And you're bigger, huh?
Okay, one more time.
No!
You want me to stop? Okay,
You want me to do it, Brian? No. I need help. Mom! Cut!
They have guys that
Dad!
will
Oh!
I didn't want to get a bad ankle already.
And then you go like that. I bet you can get way past the board.
Yeah, I
Dad's had a problem with that.
went through a period where I was drifting off while I was running trails.
Dad,
Maybe
those
that's
kids
nice.
can jump way farther.
Ever swung like this before?
I know, I'm sure we could.
You like it?
Yeah.
Good look up.
Reed, you're really high up there. How does it feel to be so tall?
It's okay.
Yeah. Hey, Daddy Brad. Hello. This is the house that Daddy lived in when he was a boy in Morton, Illinois, in the Hyde Park neighborhood. This is Grandpa Kent Bryan's retirement party, July 31st, 2003. Hello, Reed. Hey, darling. Man, what do you have there? Cheese? Do you have cheese? I'm saying cheese for the picture.
Reed's right next to you.
Mom, that's what I got instead of a stem.
What'd you get?
Oh, I froze it. What did I do? It's frozen on one frame. I don't know what I did. This is Zoom, right? Did I take a photo?
Okay, thank you. I don't know.
I'm afraid of it.
What about you, this spread? Turkey?
Oh, that's weird.
What did I do?
What did you do?
And this and this and this.
You know what?
If I broke it, I'm gonna.
You know what? I don't know. You made it still. It's okay. Uncle Chad.
We've become very animated.
Working as a nurse?
Working in the ICU.
So Brian, are you having fun tonight?
Two boys.
Reed. No, let go, let go, let go. No. We're going to run out of video camera if we film. Battery.
It's not too stressful.
Okay. Put your hand up in here and take a picture of Ashley. Push the silver button. As you're looking to it.
What did you do today? Okay. What did you do today?
Anyway, we will go down the list and we'll start with our previously retired partner, Bob Fletter.
On the more serious, reflective side, I guess I remember first when we met as residents. And all right. And I remember the things that attracted us together, or attracted you to me. Me to you. Your honesty. No, I won't tell everything. Your honesty, your fairness. That's how you actually got the name Mr. Fair. Your diligence, your abilities, really captured my attention.
Are you talking about Ken?
I'm talking about. Did you say this was a roast? I'm not searing yet. But anyway, then that was in the late mid-60s. And it was in 1975 when I was frantically looking for help back here, recognizing that I was in over my head. And so I put out the call, and you came. And you came with some questions, and your questions were this. Number one, can we practice nephrology? I don't want to come down here and practice anything other than nephrology. And I said, well, if you show me how, yes, we can. And then you said, and we have to split everything 50-50. The work, and the money, and the benefits, and everything. And I said, the money too? And you said, yes. And we have to do everything on a fair basis. And we have to develop a respectable nephrology, in your terms, program. And I said, okay. And so after some careful thought, you called back and said yes. There was only one thing that was standing between you and the position here in Peoria, and that was that you needed to interview at St. Francis with Ed McGrath. And during that interview, I was quite concerned that Ed looking out the window and not at you would distract you. But he must have been impressed like I was, and so he said, come. Well, there were a number of other things then that come into my memory. I'm going to skip ahead some. I'm not going to give all the details, but you know, one of the most significant things I think that we ever did, we shared an office. There wasn't room. We couldn't talk the hospital into another one. So we had a special desk built. You folks have heard of a bicycle built for two? We had a desk built for two. And you know, as I reflect back on that, I think that had a significant effect, because the only way you and I were able to communicate was face to face. And as we did that, we bonded. And we developed a relationship that was to weather a few storms, to be stretched at times, and yet to grow into a very cherished relationship which has stayed the time for almost 30 years. And so I appreciate that very much. I reflected back on a number of things. One is how we took call for our own patients every night. How we had weekend call every other weekend. Our new partners gripe about the they don't know. And then I remember another significant thing that I thought I did. I think you arrived on about July 1st, and we spent, I don't remember, I think 2 or 3 days. I introduced you to staff, and I gave you a tour of the hospital, and I gave you a key to my side of the desk. And I said, Kent, I'm going on a little vacation. And I left for a month. And you know, after we got back, we sat down and we began to develop some rules for our practice. And we decided that 6 weeks vacation per year would be a good rule. But never was it to exceed 2 weeks consecutively. And then we also developed some rules about medical meetings. I remember when Fred came to join us, one of the things that we agreed to was a medical meeting sponsored by Nephrology Associates, which at that time was you and me. And you know, when Fred got back from his first medical meeting that we had paid for from Hawaii, we changed the rules. You said that wasn't fair. So we don't go to Hawaii anymore at the expense of the group. One of the other things I remember about you early on was coming back to the office and saying, Bob, have you seen my pipe? I must have misplaced my pipe somewhere. It's on call usually, I think. So tonight, I thought, one of the things I want to give you want to come forward? I don't know if you're still smoking a pipe, but you know, if tobacco won't fit in that, I got something else. You can fill it with that. things that I heard commonly was, where's
Got
my
6 more pages.
where's my stethoscope? And has anybody seen that little black bag that I have my stethoscope in? So you know, I heard you say the other day that you're going to do a little volunteering maybe, and you'll probably want to practice some medicine occasionally, but I'm worried that you won't know where your tools are, so here. There's everything in there that you need to practice. Well, there's a number of other things that I've written down. I'm going to give you this list so that you can read it over in your extra time that you have starting tomorrow. But I'll mention them quickly. I forgot my pager today, Bob. You know, on that wall right across from our desk, we need a nice picture. And I get to pick it out. We also need a whiteboard in our office. And we need to build a library. We need to keep data. And we need to develop a computer program where we can just push a button. All of the information we need. One of the last things, not the last, there's a whole page here, and I'm going to give them to you later on. But one of the other things that I remember, it took me a while to get the courage up to do. But I remember when I flew with you to Cleveland in your airplane, you know, I never realized how small that airplane was, or I never would have agreed to it. But indeed, it has been a real pleasure, and I hope your retirement is reallocation, and I hope that our friendship continues on until death do us part.
Bob has always been my mentor and taught me how to be a compassionate doctor. And I guess you would know that by the length of his talk that he is a pastor.
I'm the oldest person in the group.
He just said, you know what really pisses me off? I'm the oldest person in the group.
Less than 30 years I've gone from the youngest to the oldest. And I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different about you. Well, I do feel different about you. I've been looking forward to this day since we met. I can say that because I know you don't. You know I don't mean that. I have a story to tell. Some of you probably know this story, but it tells a lot about Kent Bryant. We teach at the medical school. He actually taught the sophomore students every year, and he won a golden apple every year for teaching for a million years in a row. And then when I came, he turned the program over to me, and I began to organize the sophomore curriculum. And Kent still stayed in the lecture schedule, and he gave this lecture on pathogenesis of glomerular nephritis. And it's about as exciting as that phrase. And it's a lot of immunology and a lot of, there's a lot there for the students to digest, and he was never satisfied that this lecture was interesting to the students. And I would always ask him how it went, and he'd go, I have to redo this, you know. And he even got to the point of almost putting it on PowerPoint. But he would reorganize it and rethink it and do it differently every year. And every year he would lament to me that he wasn't sure that he really was doing a good job with this lecture. So one year I was lecturing to the students on a Friday, and I told them it would really mean a lot to me if they could give him a standing ovation for his lecture on Monday, at the end of his lecture, and I told him how he agonized over this lecture. So they said no problem. So these are the 60 sophomore students at the Peoria School of Medicine. So on Monday he gives his lecture, and they all stand up and give him a standing ovation for his lecture. And I see him later in the day, and I said, Kent, how'd your lecture go? And he gets beet red, and he goes, is this a really good class? I'm thinking, oh shit. I'm screwed. There is no way I'm going to be able to tell him that I set him up. So I said, what do you mean? And he goes, they gave me a standing ovation for my lecture. And I'm going, really? And he goes, yes, this is the sweetest thing, you know. I mean, it was just touching, you know. He was so touched by this, you know. And I'm going, oh. And I said, that's fantastic, Kent. And so we parted. About 2 weeks later, I'm passing him in the hospital. You know, he goes, Corbett. I go, yeah. And he goes, I'll get you. I'll be lecturing at the board, and I'll turn around and everybody will be asleep. Yeah. So that's the kind of sincere person that he is. And actually, Kent was one of 3 people that was responsible for me deciding as an internal medicine resident to become a nephrologist. One was my brother-in-law, who is a nephrologist and 10 years older, and Kent, who God knows how much older he is than I am, and Don Rager, who is chief of medicine and now the dean, who was not a nephrologist, but he loved physiology and he loved renal, and whenever he discussed cases, he really got into the renal aspect of things. And so Kent really was very instrumental in me deciding to do nephrology. And I have a gift for Kent Bryan. And it's in my jacket over here. It'll just take me a second to get it, and I'll explain it. And just don't go anywhere. It's not just any stethoscope. This stethoscope, I had at medical school. And it's had the tubing replaced many times and many different bells and diaphragms on this thing over the years. And I can hear better with this than anything I've ever listened to. And just recently I lost this diaphragm on this thing, and I have not been able to find another one because this is so old. And it's Hewlett-Packard, and Lippmann is taking over everything. But I figured, what the hell, you know, he's not going to need a stethoscope. Or at least he'll need just part of one. Because he's retired now. Right? So I'm going to give him my stethoscope that I started medical school with. And I took off one earpiece because he's deaf in one ear. And you don't need that. I wouldn't part with this just to anybody. But the truth is this, that if he needs to hear or feel the affection that we have for you, you won't need this.
Aww.
I used to be a young nephrologist. Now there are more guys in the group younger than me than older, and that makes me a little nervous, Fred. I just want to say a couple of words from my perspective about Kent. I grew up knowing about Kent Bryan as my dad's partner. And I knew Dad always had a love for him and a respect for him. He talked about him at home with a sense of admiration, and that was clear that they were friends and partners. And I grew up with that, and over the last 13 years I've had the privilege of knowing you, Kent, as my partner and my friend, and I am extremely grateful for that opportunity. I'll leave to others to recount the stories of Monday morning idiosyncrasies. Other than to say you've done a spectacular job, and I agree with everything Fred said 1,000%. Inside joke. I won't say all of them, but I've seen, because I'm stepping into your shoes at Midwest Kidney Centers, I'm seeing something in the past just a couple of weeks that I knew all along, but has come home to me very vividly, and that is two things. Number one, what tremendous leadership you gave to Midwest Kidney Centers and establishing the program as far as dialysis and delivery of care, and the same values you've always preached to us have clearly come through in your leadership there. But also just how well loved and admired you are personally by the staff there. And it's a great honor and a privilege to try and fill those shoes. The one more thing that I'll say that I'm going to miss about you is I've been doing some math lately, and I don't know how many votes you and I lost 8-2 and 9-2 at nephrology over the years, but I don't like the number that's left. So with that, I'll just say, anytime you want to come back and vote along with me, you're welcome. He still has a vote, right? No.
Do a spectacular job with him, Casey. I just have a little trouble adjusting, now he is the medical director, and I remember when I first remembered Ben, he was about this big. And my oldest son over here, one was a Cardinal fan and the other was a Cub fan. And I spent more time breaking up their fights. So a lot of water has gone over the hill, under the bridge, and Ben just gets nicer and nicer.
I knew about Kent Bryan and Bob Fletcher when I was a surgery resident at the University of Chicago, and their nephrology practice had a great influence on me in developing my interest in kidney transplantation and pursuing it as a career, coming back here in 1984 to Peoria to start the kidney transplant program, leaving and coming back again, and it's been great to come back. Dr. Darris isn't here, so I get to speak for both of us. We've always admired